What's up, you guys? Welcome to The Imagination. I'm your host, Emma, and today I'm so honored to introduce you all to ritual abuse, mind control, and child sexual abuse survivor and overcomer, social media whistleblower and educator, devoted wife and loving mother, content creator, singer and songwriter, and a woman who has made it her mission to educate on and destigmatize RAMCOA and DID, and to let every survivor know that they aren't alone, Emily Montefusco, aka Light System. Here's a little bit about Emily, as well as what you can expect to hear about on today's episode. In the shadowed corridors of generational trauma, where secrets fester like unhealed wounds, emerges the extraordinary testimony of Emily, a beacon of resilience whose life defies the darkness that sought to define her. Born into a lineage marred by abuse on her father's side, Emily's family tree stretches back through time, tangled in the roots of power and pain. Amid this, her mother hailed from humble, impoverished beginnings, vulnerable and easily swayed by her older husband's manipulations. Raised in a strict religious household, Emily was groomed from infancy to embody piety, attending church, praying at meals and bedtime, and even insisting as a child that any future man must share her faith, a demand her eventual husband playfully accepted, drawn by her unyielding spirit. Emily's early years painted a facade of normalcy, especially under her mother's care. Yet beneath this veneer, a storm brewed. Abuse began insidiously as a young child, escalating in a calculated progression of sexual acts that seemed drawn from her father's own unresolved traumas. Sundays became days of dread, nights a terror. Somatic flashbacks haunted her, while holidays unearthed buried horrors. As Emily navigated her formative school and teenage years, the abuse wove itself into the very fabric of her existence, fueled by her father's emotional volatility. The programming deepened with progressive acts of violation, and these traumas splintered her psyche, creating altars and DID that stored her pain and hid it from her, allowing her to survive and function as a normal child. Red flags abounded, but no one intervened. No questions pierced her silence. Abuse spilled beyond home, places like airport bathrooms, restaurant stalls, mall back rooms, hotels, and even suspected sites like movie theaters and possibly the Cayman Islands. Amid this, Emily's innate brilliance shone through. Through school, though school offered no sanctuary from the hidden rituals and cues that bound her. Programmed to conceal it all, even from herself, Emily buried the truth deep within her fractured system, and adulthood brought confrontation. She revealed the horrors to family, only to face denials. Yet from this rupture, Emily rose, escaping the cycle that had once ensnared generations. From this breaking point, Emily emerged as Light System on TikTok, a powerful voice for healing from child sexual abuse, RAMCOA, and living with dissociative identity disorder. With over 20,000 followers, she now openly shares her journey, introducing altars, explaining switching, subsystems, programmed DID through torture-based mind control, and the myths versus realities of dissociative identity disorders. Her content emphasizes self-compassion, following triggers to uncover and heal buried memories, daily practices of breaking old patterns, and the truth that compassion and love and sharing stories will not go unnoticed. Emily's advocacy is truly transformative. She educates on how DID develops as a survival mechanism, often masking symptoms for years, and celebrates the autonomy of systems while fostering understanding and support. She speaks raw truth about controllable altars into adulthood, the impact of severe trauma, and the path to integration and peace. Today, Emily stands as an awe-inspiring force, a survivor who turns splintered pain into a lighthouse for others. She proves that from the ashes of ritual abuse and programmed association rises unbreakable resilience. Her courage in revealing the hidden, in naming the unnamed, and in choosing healing over hiding, inspires countless others to reclaim their voices and truth. She reminds every survivor, you are not broken beyond repair. You are a system of strength, capable of rewriting your story with compassion, truth, and light. In Emily's words and work, we witness not just survival, but triumphant rebirth. The darkness that sought to extinguish her only forged a brighter flame. Emily is proof that healing is possible, that voices can rise above silence, and that love ultimately prevails. Her journey ignites hope in every heart that dares to heal. So, you guys, without further ado, please help me in welcoming today's guest of honor, voice for the voiceless, survivor and anti-child abuse advocate, passionate purveyor of truth, walking miracle, and someone I'm blessed and honored to call my friend, the one, the only, Emily Montefusco, aka Light System. Emily, it is an honor to have you on today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. That was like the most amazing intro thing. I was like, not only was I like just shook, bro. Okay.
You're so deserving of it. I just absolutely fell in love with your page, with your work, your message, and just you as a person whenever I found you on TikTok. It's a pretty incredible community on TikTok. I think people on other platforms tend to just stay what they're at. And I always try to tell people, if you're on Twitter or if you're on Instagram, like get over on TikTok. There's an amazing system and survivor community over there. So I'm really grateful that you're one of the people that I got to meet there. And I'm so happy we finally get to sit down today. And I didn't know if you wanted to just share a little bit about your TikTok to start before we get into your testimony. I'd love to send people there right away and just have it be something that people can look forward to connecting with you on.
Yeah. So I started on TikTok at the very beginning. Like it's like you said, the survivor space of TikTok it's like a weird little corner of the internet that is just like ready to embrace you with open arms. I like started by watching um people like the A system, like really big system DID systems basically. Gianu and the A system. I think were like the first people that I started to watch, and this was after I had just kind of realized that I think I probably have this, I have DID. And I was like, I was honestly just obsessed with the insight and love that these systems had for themselves, like how they were able to let each of the parts of themselves share without pathologizing um, the condition. And, I feel like it's crazy because I didn't know what I was doing or, any of it when it was happening. I was just like, I guess autism, ADHD, hyper focus, special interesting. Like, I was just like, oh my God, um, this is so enticing. Like, and I knew that I was experiencing the symptoms of DID. So I was like, how am I going to get to the state that they're at? Right. And I don't even think my name wasn't even Light System at that point. So I was just like starting my whole thing. Starting my whole journey of like discovering myself and discovering like the different alters and what they were like and what they would do, what they would say, because I was still amnesic. Like I still had blackout amnesia at times, and I still had like basically near constant emotional amnesia. And it was really interesting. Like my life kind of set me up to be in this discovery period, like spiritually speaking, which I was not at the time, and then slowly became more and more so as I was like healing myself. um i I remember like I had just been working at my job for not that long. I started working in addiction and recovery here in Georgia. I had worked in it in Florida for like 1 year or so before I gave birth to my first son. And then when we moved here to Georgia, I didn't really think that there was recovery here as much from addiction. Like I thought it was kind of a Florida thing, because I think at the time it was more so like, oh, go to rehab in Florida. Um, and so, yeah, I started working at the recovery center here, and it was like the safe space that I felt like it was just like, okay, cool. So you're in this very compassionate space with a bunch of therapists, and I had very like low requirements for my job. Not low, but like it was very easy, for me. I was like, this is totally manageable while raising kids. So it was perfect. And I'm trying to remember where I was going. Oh man. I started making this TikTok. I started letting basically the different alters use it as a way to just voice their own feelings. Like I would literally just let whoever and whatever say whatever they wanted. And like even if I just saved it as drafts, I did that too. And I definitely what's it called? I recommend doing that if you are a system trying to understand about yourself, because it was just expression, free expression, and writing can be difficult. So it was just the ability to just whip out my phone wherever I was and just start videoing. However, usually it was based on triggers and things in my life, like things that I was experiencing. And I was like, this is so frustrating, blah, 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 just voicing whatever was happening. And from that point on, I started to be able to track, okay, so there's very distinct parts here happening, right? Like I would be like, this part, my Hayden protector part is usually these traits and does this and is like, aggressive, or, they want to present masculinely, like they don't necessarily identify as female or whatever, right? So I had all these like different alters who were just popping in and out. And I started to track it. I was like, okay. And so the point is to say, as I was to incorporate the job part, as I was working, the reason I actually came upon Light System was because we had a sound healing practitioner who would do groups. And one day I sat in on her group, and then she passed out cards at the end of her session. And it literally said, "You are a light worker, da 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 da." And I was like, I think Light System is the name I want to go for. Like that's what I'm gonna name like my account or whatever, and like my system. That was just a little bit behind that. And I kind of picked that because I feel like I'm trying to like shine light, right? So that was the whole idea. So, okay,
I
that
love
was a
that.
little blurb about
No, it's
that.
great. It's really neat to see that you do get a lot of engagement, that people are following accounts that talk about these hard topics, because that definitely was not the case. Even just a few years ago, it was hard to get people to even consider that any of this could be real, much less sit through videos or podcasts. And now it's becoming something people are seeking out. And so I'm really, really proud of the work that you're doing. I love the education that you do. I hope that this can serve as a tool for other people, and even your explanation, just a different way with technology that we can do system work, that we can express and have an outlet. It's really cool the different ways survivors are finding social media, the internet, technology to, fulfill some of the things that the body needs for healing. And I know you have a YouTube channel too. We'll share some of your music later, but I'm going to have Emily's link down the show notes, you guys. So please go follow and support her. And if you're not on TikTok, you guys should get on TikTok, because there really is a phenomenal survivor community on there. So thank you for sharing that. I just wanted to get that in people's minds in the beginning. And so let's dive into your testimony. Let's dive into the history of the family that you were born into. I think that's a really important part. I think the movies teach us that abuse is just sudden, that there's no patterning to it. It's just this random act that people do, which does happen. But what we're finding so much more through testimonies like yours and others on TikTok and in various platforms, different survivors speaking out, is that it doesn't tend to just happen. There's a patterning throughout history that starts repeating itself until it eventually reaches somebody like you who says no more. And so I thought we'd start by outlining some of your family history.
Yeah. Yeah. So my whole being a parent too, like before I jump into it, has really shown me generational trauma and how that really like manifests, and how to help others stop it, because I had to learn how to stop it myself, right? And this isn't just like sexual abuse, but just generally any really harmful patterns that people are unaware of really, really matter. And I'm just really thankful that I was able to learn this while my kids were young, and like really be able to intervene and then try and educate, because I think it's like it is world changing, for kids and for the communities that we all have. But yes, so to get into some of my actual family background, um, it's actually really interesting to me, because when I was growing up, my dad would talk about, and he was my primary like person who abused me. So he would talk about our families, or his family, I guess, whatever, like his side of the family, in a very prestigious manner. Like I never really understood it, because I think maybe this is just the autism, but I was like, we're all just people. Like, what do you mean? Like as if there's a hierarchy or something. And I just didn't understand. But he would like we had like family books that like explained how our family came to the US, and it was one of the earliest um settling families in Virginia. And I mean, literally, I went when I started to understand that I was a ritual abuse intergenerational survivor of this. I started digging into my family history. I was like, what in the world? So, because this is something that is generational. So I go and start digging into the different people in my family, because you can look through like genealogy websites, and it shows you like these two people had these kids, and da 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 da, and it shows the dates and all that stuff. And I was digging through it, like hyper fixated through each piece of it, just really really interested in how in the world could we have possibly been linked in this intergenerational cycle, right? And I found confirmation for pretty much everything my dad said about being the first family. And like, I think it's called, his name was Rafe Wormley. So yeah, that was like one of the families who they settled in Virginia. There was a plantation, big plantation, and I do think my family had money. Not that I was aware of. I grew up very middle class. Um, we weren't like, I mean, we were okay. We were totally fine. We weren't as bad off. And I think it was because my mom really worked to provide. Like that was her, like, I think when she was growing up, she realized how hard it was to not have money, and she just started like, she got a degree, which was, she was probably the first person in her family or something. She started to work in technology. And so yeah, I mean, she started to change that narrative. And so I grew up middle class. I didn't really um feel any type of way about money. I was kind of just happy and didn't notice it, type of thing. But so yeah, I think my dad did have money, and I do think there are accounts, and I do think he, you know, their family has passed down these, all these family, you know, not just heirlooms, but accounts, investments, and stuff like that. I have no idea though. I just know that he has always prioritized talking about money and making sure that I like, I guess, understood in some capacity, which I really didn't, because I didn't care. Oh man. One of the many things that probably irked him about me is that I just did whatever I wanted. I was like, I really don't know why you're trying to put me in whatever category you're trying to do that, but I don't care. Um, yeah. So, anyways, I'm kind of goofy. It's okay. So, yeah. All right. So one other thing that he did was he would mention about the Kennedys, and I think that may have been like a hyper focus for him, in some capacity. And I just think it's really interesting, because I did read or like watch some TikToks on Jackie Kennedy, and about apparently how she was like mistreated. And I mean, there was definitely a lot of patriarchal issues going on in that, and like the wealth and all of that. Yeah, one other thing with Ramkoa history, from what I've been, I guess, told from other survivors and seen in healing spaces, is that racism is closely aligned with this Ramkoa abuse, right? This ritual abuse, mind control, organized abuse. And yeah, my family in Virginia were slave owners, like these far back generations. And I think there was definitely some racism in my family, especially my dad, his side of the family. And I always resisted it and actively spoke against it. Even as a child, it would make me really angry. Like he would say comments about like, well, you can't marry. There was a boy I had a crush on. I like really liked him, and we were best friends. We both sang together and like whatever. But he would be like, you can't marry, him. You couldn't marry him. Like, he would say things like that to me at like 7 years old. And I was like, why? And he would be like, I don't even know what he would say. Some racist comment of, I mean, he was never super overt because he was like very, oh, I'm charismatic and oh, I could convince anybody to do anything type of personality. So like he was friends with everyone. And ironically, he also teaches international studies at Kennesaw State. So the point is being that people like these abuse in people in these abuse scenarios, like, I don't know what kind of dissociative stuff he was working with, but there's definitely a two-faced situation going on, right? But yeah, racism definitely tied to Ramkoa, as far as I am aware. Have you seen the same thing in other survivors? Like, how could you speak on that at all? What do you think?
To the KKK, that seems to be a big part of a lot of these stories. So
Yep.
you see ties to racist organizations that existed and that got carried down and are still sort of idolized and worshipped in family lore, like how your dad would talk about bloodlines and stuff. The KKK seems to be something a lot of these families are proud to be tied to in some way, whether it was the direct family or a relative. And then also there's the Nazi ties, and of course, given the Holocaust and the Nazi regime, and that mind control was a big focus of the Holocaust, but there obviously was a racist curve to some degree of who they picked and choose to run these experiments on and target. And you see that running generationally too, sort of the white nationalist type belief system. So yeah, it is. It's like very interwoven in this, and they seem to, it seems to be primarily like white families that are perpetrating it. Yeah. And that think of them, they're the elite, that's all. We're the elite, just these bloodlines, just these ones, so it's very interesting how that's like woven in there.
For sure. It's bizarre. And horrific, obviously. So other things that my father instilled in me, and this is still kind of in the background of my story, was to make sure, like you mentioned in my intro thing, that I incorporated Christianity in my life forever. And this was told to me, at an age where I didn't know what that even meant, I guess, like it started very young. I was like, you mentioned in the intro that my husband now, right? We've been together since we were kids.
Oh my gosh.
And he was like, my best friend. Like we were just little kids, and I was like, if you're gonna be with me, you have to be able to go to church and you have to believe in God and Jesus. And my husband was like, yeah, okay, sure. Like he straight up just did not. His family wasn't really religious, so he was like, I don't know what this is. Sure, sounds good. Like sign me up. According to him, he was like, you're pretty hot. I think I'm gonna go for it. I was like, okay. Right. And we were literally so tiny. Like if I showed you some pictures, you'd die because it's
That's
wonderful
so
and
cute.
precious.
Oh my gosh, that's so cute.
Yeah. He literally, like, genuinely, okay, I know I'm going to get some people with this because it's woo woo, but I really think that he was put in my life as a support system because I struggled and didn't feel like I had one. And it wasn't because my mom wasn't invested and wasn't like really, really trying her best. It was that my dad villainized her. So I literally was so isolated from other human beings, which is a part of Ramkoa, right? Is like isolation programming, which is just to show the child that they don't have anywhere to run to. Like no one's coming, no one's going to help you. And it's literally like sewn into the fabric of your mind from the beginning. So, yeah, I really think he was put there as like this stable pillar in my life because I was not. Like I didn't have anything else to grab onto. And I mean, he's been through it with me, like I have put this man through some shit because of I don't necessarily just blame myself. I really just blame what has been passed down and what I had to overcome. And he was always there, like no matter how many mistakes I made. And dude, if you knew, people on my Facebook still are like, This man was made for you. It's crazy. And I'm really thankful, obviously, for that. But
It's amazing. And you're so deserving. And as a child, you didn't even know what you were going through. And so to have that almost on like an unconscious level to comfort parts of you that were struggling so bad that you weren't even aware of, it's so neat to see how that wove into your life. And he stayed that steady pillar. He wasn't somebody who just came and left. You guys are still together to this day and just happy as ever.
yeah, and I really believe that, like, and I mean, maybe this is hypothetical, but I really believe that without him there, I think that gave me such a foot in the door for healing that other people may not have access to. And so, yeah, I mean, I just try to do my part to spread awareness, because I do feel like I had things that helped me get through that other people may not have had. And I don't know, maybe that's not true, but I'm just like so thankful. Whatever.
Do you think did he ever mention that he was abused by his father or that there was any type of abuse, or did he sort of keep that to himself?
This is a great question. I would love to expand on this. So, essentially, he did something that I've seen a lot of people who have been in these situations do, especially men, which is to idealize the abuser and completely forget or turn a blind eye to the abuse that they may have perpetrated. I can't say for certain that his dad did abuse him, but the evidence that I have that it could have happened is that he was apparently very intense. His father, my father's father, was very intense about having the dinner on the table from my dad's mother at the time he pulled up from work. She had to have everything. So we're looking at very rigid OCD kind of abusive behaviors. And that pattern itself, to me, I'm like, okay, so this definitely looks like it could have been possible. Um, Not only that, but my father's sister, so my aunt, is very anxious in the ways that I was. Like I identify, I can see different ways in which I can tell, to me she looks like she may have had trauma. And she's very, I mean, I think she's okay, but I mean, maybe it's autism and maybe it's ADHD in combination. It's probably a little bit of everything. But yeah, I just sensed that there was something that he went through. And the reason for that is, not only has my first therapist, she tried to diagnose him with narcissistic personality disorder, which is a trauma disorder. Just to be clear, that means that you had to have, what I'm trying to say, not incurred, you would have had to experienced some amount of abuse to develop that type of a system and like the way your mind functions with other people, right? It's like a relational based thing, disorder. So yeah, I think that likely, and again, I wish I could say for certain, like so bad, and I have done everything I can on my end to try and actually validate this, because obviously it would be really nice for me and like my system members, like my younger child parts, and like if I could be concrete, that would just be wonderful. But so basically, I think that maybe my father's father used religion and also was reenacting his trauma onto my father, who then and did it to me in some capacity. I think definitely religion, God, and the very like black and white twisted things that come with satanic ritual abuse or ritual abuse, I think were ingrained in both my dad's dad, my dad, and then now me. But obviously I've had to work with it. Oh, I was going to say too that because religion was so enforced in the family and like so expected and pushed, the narrative was pushed. I think he could have been involved in some sort of church related, abuse too. I have no idea. Oh, and I just want to speak a little bit more on how, yeah, frequently when you have systems like this or you have abuse like this, people will idealize the abuser. So what that looks like is oh my God, I had the best father. My family is the best. And it's like very vague, kind of just reciting things that they've either been told to like say essentially, or that they just think that that's what they think, and like they are just basically like robotically saying it. And when I would ask details about my dad's dad, it's like I just felt like he couldn't give me any information. So I'm like, what experiences do you have from your childhood? This was when I was like 19 and still talking to my dad. What experiences did you have with him? Can you tell me about him? What did he do? What was he like? You know, did you guys play baseball together? Just anything. And it was like he really didn't recall a lot of things. And to me, that just sounds like there's amnesia. And I don't know, whatever. So I've definitely analyzed it to death in my healing process, just trying to get some sort of clarity and whatever. But um, yeah, I don't know. Okay, I don't know where the trafficking part would come into, where my father like essentially trafficked me. I don't know. I really don't. But we can get into that as we keep going. So
Yeah, if there's anything I was going to say, I think regardless, it seems like your father went through something traumatic, because usually healthy human beings who are of healthy body, mind, soul, spirit, don't perpetrate any type of abuse. They're like you and are actively seeking ways to break that patterning. And your father didn't seem to have a desire at all to do that. He, like you
yeah,
said, sort of idolized that aspect of the lineage, that the abusive side, and what all it was tied to. So that's
yep,
interesting. You were able to put all that together despite not having a concrete answer. And so why
yeah.
don't we go to, if there's anything, we'll get into the 3 to 5. Before that, is there anything strange about your birth or any stories of infancy before those crucial years beginning around that 3 to 5?
I think anything that I really have information wise was from my mom, and
Mm,
like her experience with him raising me, which was that he essentially was very preoccupied with his own personal schedule that he was just creating, regardless of like he was just dependent upon my mom to take care of me. He was pretty removed, like he's there in pictures sometimes, but other than that, like she's like, I felt like I had to bathe you, I had to take you places, I had to do what I needed to do to take care of you, feed you, whatever. um she would say he was largely absent.
mm,
And he would do things like, oh, I need to go study at the library for hours on end, where she's thinking she would claim she was very naive, very innocent, younger than him, and did not know like even that there would be like foul play, or that she just didn't even like anticipate what is he doing, other than that it was annoying. And she was like, it's not, she was like, why can't you be involved? Like, why are you being absent? Like, she just wanted him to be a good father, right? So in her head, she's like, why can't you be more involved?
yeah.
um so yeah, he's expecting her to cook, do laundry. He was also controlling with money, like their money. And which is ironic, because I talked to her about this like maybe a week ago. She actually made the most money for the family using her degree, right? And he had the debit card for their account. It was a joint account. So she was like not even having access to her own money. And he would give her, she would literally, she said this and she was like, I was so dumb. And I'm like, Mom, you just didn't know. Like, you were young and he was taking advantage of you. Like, this is abusive, right? He would take $25 every week and say, here's the cash. This is your lunch money, like, or whatever. So he was like treating her like a kid, even though she was making the money. Whatever. I am not surprised, at all. But she did tell stories that, like, basically he would say, oh, we don't have the money this week for you to get some new underwear. Because my mom's like, I actually just, I need some, like, they got holes in them. I want to get some underwear. And she's the most resourceful person. Like, she straight up does not waste shit, like, ever. She saves crap way too long. I'm like, Mom, we got to throw it away. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's gross. Let's start over. And, yeah, he would be like, we just can't afford it this week. But then she would find like a brand new jacket in a bag in the car that he had just bought with like the receipt. Yeah. She's like, we don't have the money for underwear for me. But she just kind of held on to that, and she was very passive, like just getting more and more frustrated, but not really ever saying anything about it. And that was sort of taught to her, I feel like, as being a woman, like you're supposed to blah, 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 whatever, right?
Do you
And
think that's one of the things your father saw in her was like sort of a woman that didn't yet have boundaries established, a little bit vulnerable, and somebody that he could possibly easily control?
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Sad.
and he worked in the church. And so in her head and in her
Mm.
mom, like, I guess I would say in her mom's head, her mom actually did not like him, like ever. But um in my mom's head, he's a man of the church. He's trying, because he did become a youth leader person in a church too. And the church, yeah, of course, right? And so he has always had consistent access to other kids. Starting to look interesting, right? With like all the information. And this is honestly, it's like repeat, repeat, repeat. This is all everyone's stories of this. It's so similar. It's always got the same theme, right? This person has unchecked access and power to vulnerable parties in which they can do whatever they want, and people don't question it, or people sweep it under the rug, ignore it, whatever. So yeah, so she was like, I'm gonna try and do the right thing. I'm gonna marry this Christian man who is older, and his family had money, and like we're talking also his mom would come and do his laundry. So even when he was an adult, he's like 20 something, 30 years old, something. So literally my dad himself has also told me that when they divorced, when I was 8 years old, was the first time he cooked for himself, cleaned, which he made me do those things too, a lot. And cooked, cleaned, and did laundry for himself. That was like the first time, he said, that he ever did that stuff for himself. And I know back in the day, that was more normalized. But now it'd be like, excuse me, you don't know how to do your own laundry at 30? Okay. So, yeah. Um, so yeah, that was kind of the dynamic going on. My mom was overly parentified. She actually had a father. Her father passed away when she was 8 years old. So she was alone with her mom and her brother. She had her own abuse history. So all the red flags are red flagging, right? Like these are all patterns that we've seen. It happens over and over and over. And so knowing these patterns is what can help free people, right? They can say, "Oh my God, I identify with this. My mom, blah blah blah. My dad, blah blah blah," and like putting that information out there, it's good stuff. Money. So yeah, she was overly parentified. She was just ready to just continue to take care of other people around her, and he was like, "This is wonderful." And you're like a sugar mama, right? Like you're gonna freaking provide. You're like money. Um, yeah. Anyways,
Yeah.
so because he was really absent, I was like really. I feel like a lot of my like modeling came from my mom. Like I definitely took on a lot of her traits because I was with her a lot. I mean, like, she's very like giving and kind, and she tries to do her best, and she works her ass off. And I definitely think I inherited a lot of that stuff. I do know there's things that I inherited from him. I think I'm fairly charismatic. I think he was that way. And so I'm thankful, but I'm like, honestly, it's kind of funny because now I'm like turning it.
Using it for good.
Yeah. I'm like, you didn't know you were sowing your own demise here with this, but whatever. Like, it's like, you're going to do all these hard things. Like, I did triathlons as a little kid, man. Like, yeah. There was like all sorts of,
Oh my
how do we
God.
desensitize you to the most intense shit any child could ever take on? And then have you just be relatively unfazed, right? Like, I straight up like did triathlons at 7 years old, ongoing until I was like 12. Gymnastics, soccer. I mean, I was like, do, like, go, 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 go. They were like pushing student council, like all the things, right? Because that's what these families are, these Ramcoa families, especially because I feel like I kind of have the political aspect background. If we're looking at your template when you asked, it was like, I was like, oh, this is such a good point. um, where is it? It said, do you have family lineage connected to military, politicians, CIA, cult, whatever, Freemason, all that definitely political feeling. And that's the Kennedy thing too, right? Like, I think that he was breeding me, whatever, subconsciously for being this charismatic leader. And now, ironically, I'm using that to change things that he probably wouldn't have wanted to change. So, okay. So yeah, how was it? Well, my mom and I were just bumping around a lot. Like, we were like best friends essentially. Um, I felt like the peacekeeper between them because of how much he talked bad about her. Like, he definitely put me into the role of a therapist at like a really young age, and I felt like I was like balancing his feelings, trying to make sure that he was okay, because he would just like be upset for various reasons, and I felt like compelled to try and help him and whatever, when it was just me and him. Because essentially, once my parents divorced, they had split custody. Um, and that's a whole story too that I've gotten into it on my own TikTok stuff, but like essentially, this is a long one. This is a big one. I'm going to try and summarize it because it's a lot. My mom was gay. From her point of view, she was gay from birth. She tried to marry into a good family with a good man and tried to do the church thing to gain approval of her mother, who was like, basically, at that time, you can't be gay. Like,
Mhm.
you have to be womanly. Like, even her mother would even push like makeup on me. And since my mom didn't wear makeup, really, I was like, what are we doing? Why are you trying to make me do this? Like, and like, whatever. Anyways, right? So there's a lot of dynamics happening. um, so what was I saying? I was saying that my mom,
I think you were saying that you guys were just together a lot and you sort of were the
oh,
therapist to both of them.
yes. Yeah. So when they divorced, he would talk really bad about her, and just say that she was going to hell for being gay. He blamed the divorce on her being gay. When in reality, the divorce was actually because he was found out to have abused a girl in the church that he was working in. And so my mom was like, when she found that out, because this was like down the road, that had happened years before. And then somebody in the hometown came to my mom's mom. And then my mom's mom came to my mom and was like, oh my God, this girl said that he abused her when you guys were early married. Like, when they had very early on in the marriage, the girl was 15, my dad was 30. He was married to my mom for 2 years, and he was abusing a girl in the church. Yeah, under the roof where my mom was, actually, too, which was really cool. And she was just
Oh
like,
my gosh.
yeah, she didn't know, didn't think he was hiding everything. I mean, clearly he hid it pretty well, considering that I also had no idea that I was abused or whatever. He's very good, very manipulative. People believe him, very likable, right? All these things. So,
Very different than what you think an abuser would be, probably very different. Your mom probably learned stranger danger.
yes.
This is what it looks like on a Hollywood movie. This is what a criminal looks like. They wear black and they look creepy. They don't teach us that these people walk among us and they dress in suits and ties and they run youth groups, and they're there with us all the time. They're not just hiding in the shadows. They're here with us, talking to us, having conversations, and being a part of the community and being actually respected by others in the community.
Yep. And if you get to know them, the red flags are there. It's just that you have to know what those red flags are, and they're
Yes.
not talked about. So that's why I think right now in this day and age, people are like, red flag, like, this is what the red flags are. And I'm really happy about that. So,
Me too.
but yeah, so he put me in the role of a therapist. I'm trying to remember where I was going to go with that, but basically I would spend some time with him, and then I would spend some time with her. Oh, they're divorced. He lied about what it was, and I had no idea because I was a kid. He talked shit about her. He villainized her. Um, and like, when I finally confronted him about the abuse, this is also kind of a tangent, but when I confronted him about the abuse, he was like, "Your mother told you to say this stuff, didn't you?" And I'm like, "This is
Oh,
such a joke."
oh my gosh. The typical gaslighting.
Yes, but it's textbook. Like literally, I had a healing book, and it literally said, like, it was a book about incest, and it literally said that that's what they're going to do, is say that literally the other parent is the blame for it, is the one who was the whatever. I'm not surprised at all. So yeah, and no, they're not gonna ever accept it. They're not. Very rarely will they say, "Yeah, I did that,"
Right.
because they've been. I mean, their whole life, all they've ever done is deny everything. But yeah, so when I would be at my dad's house, that's when the abuse basically escalated. So before their divorce, there were abusive acts done in the home where my mom was when she was sleeping. So, or if she had like a trip or she went anywhere, which she didn't do very much, but like the few times when she did leave, I do think he did abusive acts more so too. But so, yeah, I mean, essentially it started with, it was like grooming. It was like super, super grooming, right? So I love you so much, love bomby, buying you things, same things you would see in a relationship, ironically. So grooming from a very young age and like idealizing me. I also felt like this actually with my family on his side. I felt like they idealized me as a child. They love bombed me as a child. And it's almost like at the certain age, whenever I started to hit puberty, all that love like went away. And I was really confused because I was like, am I no longer the same person? Like what happened, right? But these are subtle dynamics that people like overlook, whatever. I did because I was just like, my aunt doesn't love me anymore. Like part of me really felt like that, right? But I ignored that part of me and I was like, well, it's just what it is, whatever. So yeah, and he did the same. So he, and this is the other reason why I can see the ties through the family is because she acted similar. Like, he essentially like one day just went from being not only abusing me, which to me at that time was love, right? He literally would use the words love with the abuse. This is a very common thing in Ramkoa, and like they do this thing where they flip things. I'm sure you already know, but just to touch on it a little, good becomes evil, black becomes white, light becomes dark, love becomes hate. Like there's all these weird satanic flips of like basic shit. So literally one of the cues, and I can say this now because I'm very self-aware, but a lot of Ramkoa survivors would not share a cue, meaning a trigger word that causes them to perform behaviors. It basically is like something that sets off an alter internally to perform actions based on torture that they have previously lived through. So the ordinary daily personality would have no idea that it's a cue, whereas this other alter would know because they were programmed with it, right? But one of my biggest things was I love you, and like was routinely said, I think, after the abuse. And so literally that phrase became so enraging and like just disgust so heavily in my body just because of like the cue, right? Because it was like paired with the abuse. And I have a bunch of random ones. So I'm proud of you. That one was so triggering for me. Like when people would say, "Oh, I'm proud of you," I would get enraged. Like I would be, and but I was like, Emily, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, right? Because like, if you don't have the context for why you're experiencing things like this, I just thought I was just averse to being loved, bro. Like I thought I was like averse to being cared about, and like my family knew. They knew not to touch or hug me really, because I was like, "Don't touch me." Like I don't want to be touched ever. Everything felt non-consensual. Those phrases pissed me off. I like how it's always anger. Like I'm gonna fucking stab you people. Don't say that. They're like, what the fuck? I'm just trying to be kind and like love you. I'm like, no, you cannot. They definitely did not understand that. But now they're really upset by it, obviously. And I've worked through it now. I do better. But I do have like coworkers and stuff that'll be like, oh, love you. Cause like I'm in a tight knit space, whatever. And I'm like it still stings, but I'm like, Emily, it's not that. It's not that, you know? So yeah, anyways, that's how deep that shit can go, right?
And it's sad because it permits the child from being able to receive love outside of the abuse. because those words mean the opposite in the scenarios where the child learns it with a parent who's teaching the child what behaviors go with what words and emotions, how to explain it. So then whenever you hear it, it's like you revert back to the abuse, not to understanding healthy love, which is so devious that they know that, they know that you're going to be repelled by people who want to care about you. That way you never grow close or bond with anybody and possibly tell on them.
Hey, that's it. Yeah, and like people in Ramco are so starved for not only just like verbal affection but physical affection, right? Because all we equate affect like touch with is abuse too. So I was so touch starved. I mean, I'm still working on it, right? Like that is going to be a lifelong healing process, is that like touch can be magical, right? And it was meant to be that way, not meant to be so harmful and like disgusting and horrific, right? But yeah, I'm not alone. And so many of us have had the same type of experience, like very similar. Yeah, I think that's really good. That's good info for sure.
It is, yeah. Because that can be something people don't understand, if they're with somebody who went through abuse and they're trying to comfort them, and I love you, I want to give you hugs, and
oh my God, yeah,
they're not going to understand. Or a child, why is this child reacting so negatively when I'm just praising them? I'm telling them I'm proud of them, like they got an A on their homework or whatever it
oh
is.
my God.
It's
My
just
mom
the inversions are just disgusting.
My mom would break down hearing you say that, because literally that was her story for like my whole life. She was just like, why is this like this? Like, because she had no idea. Like, none of us knew, because I hid it. And like literally the only two people in my life, literally the only two, my mom and my husband, didn't even know. So nobody knew. So we were all just like, yeah, Emily's just quirky. She just hates that for no apparent reason. And it's crazy. Like now that everybody's more aware of mental health, that would be a red flag. But at the time, they thought it was a personality trait. They were like,
Yes.
she just hates that. Like,
She's
yeah,
ADHD or she's autistic, whatever the words are that they put.
sensory.
They never
Right.
think about abuse or could this be trauma? It's always something else.
Yeah. There was always like signs too. Like my husband would be like, for some reason, you have all the signs that somebody abused you. And he was like, did somebody abuse you? And I was like, I don't think so. Like, I don't think so. It should be like, no, for sure. Right. But I was like, I don't think so. Some symptoms I would have were, along with the stuff we're talking about, right? Touch aversion, disgust with touch, blah, blah, blah. Well, I don't know. I felt like I kept putting myself in really awful situations. So, and that's common for survivors. If you haven't processed trauma, you're going to keep trying to relive it to master it. Basically, your brain, according to what I've read, your brain is trying to master that traumatic situation and like do it in a way in which you're no longer, I guess, the receiver of this abuse, right? Like you're trying to work through it. And I think that this is also like for abusers. Like I think they're doing the same thing. Like they are also, if they have especially been victimized, are trying to replay it from a position of power. But yeah. Okay, so but to go into the abuse, I want to go into some of it, and it is really, I mean, it's just upsetting. I think one of the most notable things that helped me realize that this was programming, and it was like he was gearing me towards being trafficked, which how would one know that? Well, let me tell you. So essentially, I started to recognize that my abuse memories were sequenced in which it got progressively more intense, the acts. So like whenever I was very young, it would be just like touching or I'm trying to think of a good way to say it, whatever. Like basically at first it was like touching each other or having you touch them or them touching you, abusing you in that way. And then eventually it was like fellatio. And then eventually it was like fellatio to the point where you vomit, because it was way, way too much, right? And so that like succession of intensity was strangely lined up with the ages in which I started to be more so like he was going to start trafficking me and like having other people abused in the same ways, and perform those acts. Those specific types of acts is what I was having to do in these memories with other people. So I was like, okay, so this is starting to look really clear to me that this was planned out. Like, this was not just like random things that he just acted on urges, which is what I had originally thought. And I think Ramkoa would support this type of thing too. I don't know if other survivors have a really similar progressive type of thing like that. Would you
Yeah.
say? Yep.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's like conditioning. I've explained it to people who never heard of it, almost like a child playing a sport. You start, if you have a child playing soccer ball, you'll start by them like touching the ball, feeling it with their feet, like getting used to just having it in their proximity. Then you move into doing some little foot drills. You know, there's a progression, and then eventually it's competitive. They're making goals, they're working on a team, you know, and there's like strategies, but it goes step by step, you know. And abuse, people think how you just said, it's like this random thing, or people are acting on urges, just that there's not some type of like ritualized system to it, but there actually is. It's conditioning. They're training
Yep.
you to be basically a sex slave that they can sell to people or give to people or even themselves, and you will know how to perform for whoever the client is, you know,
Yep.
whoever they're planning on using you with. And so it's just horrific, but that's 100% exactly how it is. It's a progression. They don't just go right into the really intense abuse. They start by getting you comfortable with things just simple like touch, you know, or just even touching you inappropriately, but not penetrating and not doing anything that could be, you know, sort of challenged by the kid or super uncomfortable, just enough to like break
Yep.
down your barriers and your boundaries a little bit and take those away from you. And so you, just like how you thought love was abuse, you also think love is these touches that don't necessarily feel good, but they love you. So this has to be what adults do with children. That's just what
That's
you do.
exactly. That's exactly. Yep. That was the most like, that was a big moment for me because I was like, oh my God, like it was a big puzzle piece that needed to come together for me to like really understand that there was trafficking and like how that would have happened. And like that kind of happened right before I think it happened right before a lot of the actual trafficking memories came, right? And like for me, my experience was my brain was like literally dipping its like toes into the deep end, right? Like I straight up like everything was incremental, and this took years. So like initially I started by thinking my dad was just like emotionally spousifying me, and that was the extent of the abuse. Like that's how I started. I literally remember I would go on runs and I would listen to this a book on, what is it called? A book on where they speak the book, whatever. What's that
Oh
called?
yeah. Like an audiobook.
Audiobook. Yes.
Yeah.
That. So, and it was Kenneth Secret Survivors or something like that. Secret something by Kenneth somebody, right? And it was I could probably I've talked about this stuff on my TikTok too. But it basically just was like talking about how if a parent parentifies you or spouseifies you and you have this level of enmeshment, it will cause similar symptoms to overt incest. Covert incest, that's what it's called. So, covert incest, which is maybe a parent referencing you sexually or like literally non physical acts of sexual abuse, right? Will cause similar symptoms to overt sexual abuse. And so I was like, oh, perfect. Like, right. I had researched myself into believing that that was the extent. My dad treated me like a wife, which he did. He asked me to cook him dinners, all these things, right? At literally such a young age. Like, he would, when we would go on trips, which I now understand to be trips in which he could possibly traffic me to people internationally because it's less regulated. We would go on trips and I literally remember he's so goofy. Like this man is weird, right? My mom is like, this man is weird. People do not know how weird this man is. He packed a fucking giant hardback suitcase with canned goods because he's a cheap ass, and then had me fucking pulling this shit in the airport. I'm not
What?
laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because it's fucked up. You gotta laugh about it. I was so pissed when I got back from that trip, and I was like, he made me carry this my mom was like, what? Why the fuck was he doing that to you at 7 years old? And I was so resentful of him, like, for doing that. And this is the level of selfishness and ridiculousness that is happening in this person's brain. What are you doing? Like, honestly, if you told that to anybody else, they'd be like, what? Why? Like, very strange behavior. So yeah, I was like toting a giant suitcase of food through the fucking airport at 7 years old. Um,
Oh my gosh.
it's literally just so dumb sounding. It's funny. Okay, so first it was covert abuse, right? I was like, Emily, he's just treating you like a spouse. That's what is really like, that is what's caused you to have all this resentment towards him, because basically my whole life I just had disgust for this man. And like nobody in my life could know why. Like they just couldn't understand. They were like, he's so nice. He's always buying people gifts, right? He's funny and he's charismatic, like very similar to me, minus the abuse, of course, right? So nobody understood why I resented him. And it's really because like the protector parts, who also weren't even aware, because they were like daily alters, they weren't even aware what he had done. So when I would have my protector part come out, which I didn't know because it's very, very covert DID. So I would experience DID in a way where you wouldn't know. Like I would seem very similar, which is why videoing myself on TikTok, it was like investigative work, bro. Like, I mean, there was very minute differences. There was speech differences. There were just what they liked, alters and stuff, right? Like how we differed. But yeah, my protector parts hated him. So anytime that I would switch into them, because he would trigger me, or people around me would trigger me because they would act like him, I would be very like outwardly outspoken about how he's just irritating, he sucks, whatever. And my protector part was actually modeled after my mom, which is cool. So I like essentially just what is that called? It's called introjected her. Like I just straight up took her and I was like, yep, this is part of who I am. And like one of my parts literally is like that, just very similar to her. And was gay too. So literally just everything just said, oh, that's who I am now. But yeah, so why do I keep losing this? Okay, so covert incest. It was like incremental, right? So then after that, it was, oh my God, I think he actually did touch me, like physically abuse me in some capacity. So then I would have flashbacks on that and I would journal about that and I would talk to my therapist about that. And then eventually it was, yeah, I have DID. So still don't know what exactly happened. He definitely sexually abused me. I had like flashbacks of just like him coming into my room when I was a little kid and stuff like that. And then eventually, after a lot of working through basic patterns of like dysfunction for me, it was, oh shit, this was Ramkoa. Like this was actually ritualistic abuse. And I had like system friends and I had people online who really helped me come to terms with that. And then once I finally could actually sit with that, the reality, because typically Ramkoa trauma is just extreme. Like you hear about the most extreme things. And for me at that time, I was like, there's no way that like I just went through all that stuff and don't know. Like, but then if you learn about it, that's the exact way it presents. Is you don't know literally any of the abuse almost until you know, and then you know, and you're like, oh my God, this is so bad. And that's due to programming, silence programming, and just the way that the abuser mind controls the victim to make them hide the abuse at all costs, to themselves, to everything in their life, right? So yeah, it took me some time. Took years. So anybody who's going through this process, just know, like, don't rush it. You know, it's gonna happen. If you want to do this, you can do it. It's gonna be okay. Like you're gonna get through this time. And definitely just finding support systems was like my biggest. I don't know what I would have done. I don't think I could have done any of the amount of stuff that I've done without the people that I have. And I'm so happy about it. I'm so thankful. Okay, so but when I would like stay with my dad from 5, like as the divorce happened and like he became overtly more abusive, right? So following the sequential timeline of my experience as a child, I would avoid um like things that reminded me of the trauma. Um, Even the self who didn't know avoided those things. And that was a way of preserving, not only because I was terrified of it, but because I was supposed to hold this abuse in, right? So I wasn't supposed to tell anyone. So Sundays were really hard for me. And I'm just guessing that that is ritual abuse in itself, right? So there's some sort of obsession with the day that you go to church, you repent, you're blah, blah, blah. And then for whatever reason on Sundays, literally every single week, I was aware when Sunday was coming and like when it was and how it was. And I remember like my like brain, my non-traumatized brain would like try and find ways to feel secure and less anxious and less stressed out because essentially I would just have somatic flashbacks at random times. They weren't random, but to me it felt random. So I would just like basically anything that triggered memories would cause a somatic flashback if I wasn't able to distract myself well enough, if I wasn't able to ground myself well enough. And nighttime was big, right? So, like, every single night, it would be like, it's coming, like, the time is coming, the time is coming, the time is coming. And I have OCD, like, severe OCD, and it's in my family. So, is it trauma? Is it autism? Is it OCD? It's all of it, I guess, honestly. I would be obsessed and compulsed with nighttime and with other times that would bring somatic flashbacks. Holidays, I hated. Holidays, I just dealt with like, but every single Thanksgiving was really, really rough on me. Easter was rough on me. Other survivors have said, you know, like Christmas and stuff, it's really like depending upon the cult or the family and the patterns that have been passed down. So every person going through this is going to have their own weird, specific thing that they didn't choose, why they're triggered by it, and that basically it's just like this time sucks for me because I'm trying to survive the anxiety and the flashbacks that are going to just start occurring. And yeah, it's rough. Because I had a lot of trauma with vomiting, I developed emetophobia, like fairly young. So that's like the fear of vomiting. So that started for me. It literally started to take hold on my life at like 7 or 8. And I think that was due to the fellatio induced vomiting. I think it was due to one thing I really want to talk about on here is this really weird ritual that I still really don't completely understand. And I wish, like, I don't even think, honestly, I genuinely don't even know if my dad understands it. I don't know what was the point of it. I think it was like remnants of his trauma leaking out into his behaviors and then he just performed it on me type of thing. But essentially, like, in his house, alone, he like forced me to eat, and I don't even know if I actually ate it. I don't even know. An organ or like raw meat of some kind. And like that was like the main chokehold of my emetophobia. Like I didn't know why. I was basically like all my whole life after 7 or 8, all my entire life was structured around my emetophobia. Like everything. If I couldn't eat at certain restaurants, like my OCD was like, how are we going to prevent you from having to relive that? And it had me in a chokehold. Like I'm talking about, people don't understand how OCD can be so intrusive. I mean, people who have it do, but I like, even my family doesn't know the amount of misery that was up here while that stuff was happening. And it took me processing all the trauma to have it have a way less of a grip on me. And that was the only thing that actually finally helped. I'm still medicated for OCD. I take, I take a high dose to try and like mediate it. And it is helpful, but working through the trauma is what really makes it to where you can actually live as a person and not just like be a survival response. constantly. Yeah. But yeah, the weird organ thing. I really don't know where that came from. Like, and it was as a punishment. And I don't even really know for what. Like, I don't know what he was like when I worked with the altar who survived it, I was like, they had very, very fixed and specific beliefs, right? This is the torture-based mind control programming stuff. They had very, very fixed beliefs about what caused us to have to undergo that whole thing, right? They were like, it's your fault. So he was telling me it's my fault. I had some sort of guilt, like I did something to cause me to have to eat this. And then, like, I guess I don't know if I actually ate it and threw up. I don't, I mean, I had, I processed the memory and it seems like I did either, sorry, my thing. I processed the memory and it seems like I did either almost eat it or eat some of it and then be throwing up. And with all the other throwing up issues that I had, it just made it like a billion times worse. So yeah, and a lot of it circulated around the little part of me thinking, I'm gonna be alone in vomiting, and I thought I was gonna die. Like, okay, and I know this is a lot of survivors of Ramkoa. Like, if you think that you're gonna die all the time, like if your parts internally, you probably went through Ramkoa. Like, because literally that's the point. Is like they bring you to near death, and like that is how you mind control someone, right? And yeah. Like half my altars were like, I'm dying, I'm dead. And I would always be like why are you, because this was before I knew anything about my trauma. Like I would be like, what do you mean you're dying? And if you ask like my family, all my extended family, like a phrase that I say, and they always thought it was just a quirk, was, oh my god, I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die. Oh, that is like everything was death, right? Like it looked like I was just obsessed with death. And nope, it was literally because parts of me were still stuck in trauma time, actively thinking that they were about to die or could die, depending on whatever they lived through, right?
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, so that's cool. I stopped doing that once I processed a lot of it. But yeah, vomiting had a chokehold on me. It still sort of does, but I can talk internally between parts to really help soothe myself and like be able to be the parent that they needed when they felt isolated. And that was the issue. I think that was one of the bigger parts, right? Um, yeah. And I mean, even when other people would throw up, I thought they were dying. I literally think they're dying. And like these little parts of me, rather, sorry, the parts of me who experience this stuff, they think that people are dying. So I remember when I was in college doing typical college bullshit and drinking with people, and like it was literally my roommate, my husband, and me did a bunch of nasty shots on watermelon vodka or something like that. And obviously that was a terrible idea, and my husband starts throwing up and I literally thought he was dying. Thought he was
Oh.
dying. My best friend, who was my roommate, was like, Emily, he's not dying. Like, she's like drunk as shit. I'm pretty much drunk as shit, but now obviously sobering up a little bit. And she's like, he's not dying. And I'm like, I'm literally at the trash next to this man who's actively just like barfing because he drank too much, being like, you're dying. Like, straight up, I think he's dying. Like, I am not well. I'm like, now my family member is dying. Like, it's causing so many flashbacks, right? I'm like, just fucked. And my roommate knows me because I've been in school with her for like, I don't know, 8 months or something. So she literally physically holds my hand, walks me to my room, and has me sit in front of Disney Channel because she knows that this is how I am. So like she didn't even know. None of us knew that I had DID or that, none of that stuff. But isn't that crazy fascinating? I mean, it's bad. It's horrible. But straight up, she was like, "Yeah, Emily, just watch. Look, Mickey Mouse Club, whatever the hell's on TV." It was like 2 in the morning. I'm just like trying not to have a full blown fucking somatic flashback panic attack situation. And he's just in there trying to just throw up like a normal person. And I'm like, no, you're dying. Literally, this is it for you. I'm telling you your goodbyes. Like, I'm so sorry. Like, I didn't want this to come to this. I don't want you to die like this. Like, because you barfed, because you drank. And like, it can't be logicalized with trauma parts, bro. Like, especially programmed ones. So yeah, this is the type of shit that, like, just it prohibits, right? OCD like this prohibits just basic function in life, right? I would only eat at certain restaurants. I could only eat in certain foods. Part of me's are vegetarian. Can't handle meat, right? Because now the organ thing and the meat and it looks like meat and whatever. I'm still kind of weird about meat. I'm like, oh, and that could be autism too. Is probably a lot of factors going on, or sensory issues rather. Um, Something else interesting that I noted on here was I had a food scarcity obsession too. And so a lot of the time when people are programmed with sexual abuse during Ramkoa, they will starve people to further deepen the programming. So they will like make sure that you don't eat so that you're at an even more dissociated state to where you cannot be logical, right? Like you are, they drug people, you're starved, you're sleep deprived. They're doing everything they can to disillusion you from reality. And I do think that that may have happened during programming because I would get really psychotic about making sure that I have food. Like, and I'm like, I start to like panic if I feel like there's not enough food in my house. You can ask my husband, like, I'd go spend my whole bank account trying to just make sure that we had food, even if we kind of had food. And he would always be like, oh my God, we have enough. Like, you don't need to buy more. And I was like, no, no, no. Like, I can tell there's not enough. There's not enough for my kids. Like, and I would like feed them extremely well balanced shit, like very, very OCD again, like trying to make sure they have all the food groups because during that programming time, I mean, he would pretty much just give me microwave meals and have me do them for myself. So, like, I straight up saw that as abusive, which isn't really reality. You know, kids can eat that stuff. Like, and my husband would get kind of annoyed with me before understanding about that too. Like, I would be like, no, they have to have fresh fruits, vegetables every single time. Every meal has to be perfect, like, whatever. And he was like, sometimes they can have mac and cheese from the box. Like, it's going to be okay. And I was like, I can tell this is abusive. He was like, it's really not. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they can't eat hot dogs. Like, just crazy stuff. Like, because I was so like, anyways, just other symptoms that might be helpful for people to know. You know, um, like I said, Thanksgiving and Easter, somatic flashbacks, or just like really deep resentment, hate Jesus, hate Easter, hate things that are pastel colored. Like it just starts to spread out, right? Your OCD and your avoidance is just like so intense. So that's definitely how I was. Something I want to bring up about my father was triggered by animal harm. Okay. And so for me, this means in some capacity he experienced it and maybe he did actually break the generational cycle on that. The reason I say that is because anytime there was like a movie that had a dog or an animal that was like not happy, he was like, no. Yeah. So he would like not watch any movies like that at all. Like, and he would proclaim that they were like really, really messed up. And so I grew up thinking like, oh, like these are fucked up movies. Like, why are they depicting a dog who's lost? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what the fuck? And so I think his like extreme view of it was a way of him protecting himself from whatever type of weird programming stuff that they probably might have done in his family or that he saw in some capacity. Additionally, um, when my first dog, who was really old, she was such a good dog. My mom and dad had this dog before I was born, and she was like an old Cocker Spaniel. When that dog passed away from totally normal, healthy stuff, I mean, the dog was super freaking old, had to wear diapers for months on end. Like, this dog was fine. It was just old, normal dog death. My mom said he was like completely inconsolable for like weeks, months, like needed like treatment, you know, like medication, like was not, she said he he came to the vet and he said the Lord's Prayer with the person like over the dog and like just was just psychotic. Like she was like, it was so weird. And I was like, Mom, that sounds like a trigger 100%. Like it sounds like he was being triggered by this. Yeah, and then I have other weird memories where oh, so this kind of goes with, maybe this is the organ thing. He's like blaming me. Like maybe he saw something and he was triggered and putting that on me. Because I had another abuse memory where, like, I just remember that there was like some sort of weird blood stuff in my garage in that house with my dad. And like, I still don't really understand what was happening. And I don't know if maybe he even told me, like maybe I had no way to understand it. And that can be really frustrating too with memories, is like, you may not be able to find out what is actually the cause, or like why the person did it, or what the program was even supposed to do. If you're not in a super organized child ring, programming may look very weird and not, like, people would say, airtight, meaning like every single time that they did the mind control, it was this step, this step, this step, this step. And it was always like tight sealed. And usually those people struggle to heal because it's so professionally done by a handler and by people who have done this for generations. Like, I don't sense that that is the way that I was handled. Right. I think more so it was like my dad was just kind of like generationally like freaking out at me, and then I caught a bunch of shitty things, and like it sucks. And I do think it helped me heal because he didn't do it in a way that other people have survived, like really, really extremely structured abuse, right? Have you heard that from survivors, like, at all, that like there's like tight programming basically?
For sure, yeah. There's different levels of mind control. Some of it that I've heard takes place primarily like in a household by a parent or, a couple abusers, just like a small circle. And it's not necessarily super sophisticated, but it's enough to create dissociation, which is what they want. They know the boundaries of where they can break the psyche and how they can fracture the child.
Right.
And that's sort of like what their goal is. It's not really like, okay, we're going to connect you to technology. We're going to put this thing on your head. We're going to monitor you, put you in a lab. There's going to be doctors. It can get that sophisticated.
It can, yeah.
Where they are really like, they have it dialed in. They know exactly what they're going to do. They press a button, and then this happens. Or it's this exact way, and then it's the same way that they do it to the next child. Or it's based off your levels that they've, measured from you. It's like very particular and sophisticated, where other abuse, it's more like, I want to, create a part, or I want to dissociate her. And so I'm just going to do enough trauma to where it does that. But it's not really like something that has a rhyme or reason necessarily, aside from maybe he learned it from somebody, or it just, he learned your boundaries and kind of like where to push you to where that would happen.
Yeah. So some things I want to talk about on that I had typed up is that, so something about my dad specifically, and I feel like this would definitely be helpful for other people who have been through parental programming. Like if it was intrafamilial, it was in their family. I felt like my dad, like, he abused based on his emotional state. So like it was really confusing, because as a child you're trying to do whatever you can to like lessen the abuse, or like avoid it at any cost. And so, but you're not even cognizant because you're a kid, so like you don't even know what you're doing. You're just doing what you're doing and trying to make it less intense, right? So if he was emotionally struggling, like let's say he had a rough day at work, and like I felt like it had to do with if he felt like he wasn't in such a high status. Like maybe he made a mistake, or maybe he, like, somebody saw him in a vulnerable state or something. Like that's when I felt like he would abuse me more. Like it's almost like he would use it as an ego boost. Like I feel like maybe emotionally he was compensating for like what he was living in. But I don't think he like knew that. It just, that's how it felt to me as a child. Like, and also additionally, part of that was like, I felt like he was delusional. Like I felt like I was living in his own delusion. Like he would randomly almost be like an actor in a play, and like I would just be like like, I don't even know what my part's supposed to be. Like, I don't even know, because, like, you know, as a super intuitive child, and like as someone who was with him my whole life, I wanted to like act right. I was a very compliant child, like, and I am now. Like, I'm just passive in the way that I like want everybody to be comfortable, and I want to be comfortable too, but like I want to make sure that everybody's just like, I know that's not necessarily healthy, but um I've been a peacekeeper kind of personality my whole life. And so I would just be like, I don't even know what this man wants me to do. Like, how do I fit into this delusion? Like, I feel like at times I would be his like pretend wife in his head, perhaps. I would be some young girlfriend, perhaps, at different times. Like, it's almost like I just don't feel like he even knew he was deluded. Like, delusional people don't know they're delusional sometimes, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know, they have to like be self-aware. And I don't think he was. Like, um, I said, I felt like he was playing out something from his past or imagination onto me. I would feel like I was in a role play without a script or without being assigned a part. I think he may have been in psychosis or triggered at times, and it was like super, super confusing. Just based on the fact that I go into psychosis based on my flashbacks and triggers, like I could see that that would make sense based on like my experiences with him. And then I was very, very triggered by guilt or illness or sadness. I would have extremely disproportionate and aggressive responses. So I think I was having emotional flashbacks, and I do, with my husband if he's ill or if he is sad. Those are the two biggest ones. Like, and I work through it a lot now. And now that I'm aware, I'm thankful, because I would be really cruel to my husband, but it's because I was projecting my father onto him. And I was thinking that he was trying to make me take care of him and stuff, because my dad did that to me when I was a little kid. So like, and this is another thing, is I think my dad may have been like, if he did abuse alcohol or anything, if he did vomit or anything, I thought he was dying. Like, and I think that's part of why I also think people now, the little parts of me, will think people are dying. He was very dramatic. Like, he wanted everyone to feel bad for him. You know, he was extremely like, you know, he wanted me to take care of him. And so like, I just remember him, and I mean, I think that's sensitive. That can be a good quality, except for that he would weaponize it towards me as a child, and I didn't have the understanding to know any of that stuff. And like, if he had an injury, honestly, he acted like the entire world was shutting down, and he was like, "Can you please care about me like a mother would?" And I was like, I'm 7. Like, no, bro. I literally have no capacity to do any of these things, right? Like, I'm in this play with this man who doesn't know that he's in a play. What the fuck? um, yeah, it was very bizarre. So I don't know, maybe that might be helpful for people to hear, like that is what my experience was as a child. Also, it was hard because I was an only child. And I think a lot of families aren't that way, so that's, I don't know. It could be helpful, it could be not. Um Different rituals. Oh, you know what I think we should do is do that PDF somewhat. Can
Okay.
you pull that up?
Absolutely, I can.
Okay. So basically what happened is when I was trying to process and heal through all the different actual traumas, which took me again years into healing to get to this point, right? So it was not overnight. It took me a long time. Um, a lot of systems online who are also Ramcoa systems or ritual abuse survivors would talk about the different types of programming. Okay. And so this is literally just like very, very bare minimum, not a lot, right? These are things that specifically was relevant for me, but there's like lists and lists of so many different types of things. These are almost like like bigger categories. Like a beta program is always going to be sexual related, service related, right? Like you are the sexual person, you're fulfilling the need of the whatever the sexual thing is. Alpha is supposed to be like the base program, like the program where it's like you teach it first. This is like the grooming process, right? Like you teach that obedience has to be immediate. And the torture is applied and the cue is set, so then the original torture doesn't always have to be applied to get that same behavior. Like it says there for alpha, like the base program. So on the left, I put which program I felt like was affecting me, and then the right side was the ways in which I saw this affect me in my life, like the specifics, right? So, it's really just a way to conceptualize what the different frustrating and harmful things that you keep experiencing are. It's like a way to categorize it. And then also it's helpful because survivors can relate to each other. So they can say like, "Oh, I have a Delta program." And then you would know what that is. Okay, Delta, cool. So it means that you were basically forced to perpetrate on somebody else or kill somebody. Technically, like there's lots of different ways in which these categories are used, but they do signify certain things. Okay, so I just think it's helpful to see my examples for people because even though theirs may not be exactly the same, it gives good examples, I guess. I don't know, whatever. Maybe it helps them see how it could be affecting them, right? So when these things are triggered, it feels as though you have no control over yourself. Like essentially the second the cue happens, your brain sends out that alter, and if you have no awareness, will create amnesia so that your day-to-day self doesn't even know that you are engaging or that you did this or any of it, right? It's incredibly complex sounding and crazy that could be a thing that somebody's mind can do, but it happens to pretty much all of us who have been ritual abuse survivors. So one thing I wanted to bring up was this Delta program. For me, this happened through, I don't know exactly, but it has a really cool story. I have a story in conjunction with it, so I wanted to bring it up.
Okay.
So in my job, okay, this is insane. It sounds unreal, and I know it does, but so does most anything that us as Ramco survivors go through, right? I literally had someone come to my job for treatment. Okay, so they're getting treated for substance use disorder. And it took me a while to recognize that I had been involved with this person, and they recognized me as well, but neither of us could figure out how until one day I was literally standing with them and it like hit me like a wave. Like I saw a flash of the like what happened. Like we had survived together in a Delta program where essentially I was forced to perpetrate on this person. And it was the most, I have never, that it was insane. Okay. So it put me in a really horrible position as someone who works in treatment. Like, and I had to I basically had to try and not be around that person, not talk to that person at all. It was super triggering for me, but I felt bad because obviously I was really guilty for what I had to do to them. And it was just really, really, really bad. But, so one way they control you is by having you as the child perpetrate on other kids. And that is a very common Ramcoa based thing. And like we're talking about, there was an age difference. So him being 6, me being 9. It's being videoed. Like it's whatever, right? So all of these things, and I'm telling you, I was never spiritual, but the fact that happened to me, it's just like, why? And I needed to process that shit at the time. And, having this person and all I could see in the flashback, I can see this person's eyes, and he's terrified because he's 6 and I'm 9. And he's looking at me for reassurance, like, are we going to get through this? Whatever is happening, is just insane that this whole thing came, whatever. So anyways, that was part of the Delta stuff that I had to process. I just feel like spirituality, like I cannot decouple that with my healing experience. Like it was just, I have been continuously shocked by it. But I'm in a good way. Like, I feel not alone, and even if that's like my higher self, I'm not saying it's God or Jesus or anybody, I don't know, whoever. It doesn't really matter to me. Like, it's just the fact that, like, I feel like there's more to the universe than what we see and can see. And so it's cool. I don't know, really, that's all it is. I'm fascinated with it. And like, I just like to like see what happens because it's interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think I also want to tell people that I am going to upload this to my link tree, which is on my TikTok. It was on there, but then somehow the file got like lost. So I'm gonna re-put it on there. And yeah, I have other resources for healing from this stuff too. So if anybody's interested, the other person I want to mention is their handle is Squiggle Sis. So squiggle.sys. And they have a whole lot of Ramcoa resources too on their link tree. Okay, so yeah, essentially that like PDF just gives like lots of different examples of how the abuse looked and like how I reacted to it, sort of. Um, but yeah, well, and then let me see what else. So other programming examples were having my face held underwater after SA, and I take this as possibly like some sort of baptism thing because I don't know why else that would happen. And I would have dreams like the same type of dream over and over again, and part of me felt like I had like an underwater world, almost like an inner world that is like underwater because I don't know. Like I said, my dad put me through very extreme physical stuff, like triathlons and scuba diving at like 7 or 8, 9. Like I couldn't even hold the tank up, bro. Like I was tiny, and of course I was like, sure, that's cool, but like I didn't know why that probably wasn't the best idea at 7 or 8 or 9 or whatever. I don't know what age I actually started scuba diving. It might have been like 9 or 10. Regardless, it's young. I was small. I'm a small person. I'm not like a big person. So that tank was huge. Like the scuba tank. But yeah, I mean, learning to be underwater with only this respirator 30 feet down at that young of an age is an intense experience because you have to take your mask off underwater 30 feet down, after having equalized your ears, and you have to be able to take it off and put it back on and clear the mask. You have to be able to take your respirator out, let that go flying around, and then you have to learn how to get it back, put it in your mouth, and clear it, all while holding your breath. So there was a lot of water-based shit with my dad. Like between triathlons, the baptism thing, and the scuba thing. Like I just felt like I think literally part of me is like, oh, I'm just a fish. It's fine. Like I just be fishing around in my inner world. Like, which is fine. I mean, it's fucked up, but I'm saying like I I love, like, I wanted to be a marine biologist for a while, so it definitely made me who I am to a point, I guess. So I wrote on my template, forced ingestion of unknown raw organ or meat. I still have no idea. I think that's so weird. I don't know. It was really disgusting and fucked up. Bondage memories. So basically, I've heard of this before, but adults who abuse kids will show them a video of some sort of like porn or whatever to get them to emulate it. And I did have that. There was like a really weird memory where I was always wearing weird shit in front of a bunch of random men. Like I have a lot of memories and that's how it feels. Like it feels like I have like random middle-aged men and I'm in a room where I don't know these people and I'm naked or wearing some sort of whatever and it's fucked. Like my concept of like how much clothes was a normal amount to still have on around people, which was not a lot of clothes, became very, I didn't know how weird that was. I didn't know it was weird to like feel not uncomfortable, but also, of course, super uncomfortable being naked, almost naked in front of like whoever. So I would re-victimize myself a lot. I would wear skin tight clothes. I would wear swimsuits or like just very little clothes all the time. And like people in my life were like, she just doesn't wear anything. Like, I don't know. And I didn't really know how weird that was. Not to say it's weird. I didn't know what it was related to, like for me. So, not to say it's weird, because I think, it can be restricting to wear clothing, whatever, like totally good, but not in front of strangers and stuff like that, right? Like, and I did not know how weird. And I feel like I kept putting myself in scenarios where I could be victimized. And my husband would always be like, I wonder why you're doing that. And I was like, bro, I don't know. I don't know why. Now I know. What have I not gone through? Yeah, I mean, I think it's good to normalize the experience of trafficking and how, so that people understand how it looks. Because I don't think everybody really knows when they hear that what can happen. And basically, my dad would bring me places starting at a really young age. Some of my alters, I feel like they're like 5 and 6 with these memories. So I don't know if I was already starting to be trafficked at 5 and 6. It sounds like it. Internally, I would say yes. At a mall where we would go to a department store thing, or like a store in the mall, and in the very back there would be like a closet backspace area where I would like do something for a random person in the mall. And the fucked up thing, the really sad thing, the hardest part of it emotionally was processing that these people don't love me, right? Because I was trained to think that these acts meant they loved me, and I was like searching for love in these random people who then never showed up again, because obviously I was serving them at a place. And like my naive younger selves was like, oh, but this is how like I can get love. This is how I love people. Like I just, and as crazy as that sounds, it was really subconscious. Like it really was. Like I did not, these little parts of me were just ever wondering when somebody could love and like stay, despite always having my husband, despite always having him. But these parts of me they aren't aware of what's my like current reality. So they're aware of what they went through, and they're trying to reenact and get mastery over what they went through, which is random people at a mall or in a fucking airport where I'm in. Like, so for the airport, I'm pretty sure it was the Atlanta airport based on like what the memory looked like. And I'm, walking with my dad, and then I have to go with this other man, and I have to go into the bathroom, and it's like, really earlier in the morning or the middle of the night or something. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm with my dad, and we don't know if we were going on a trip or if he just brought me there because it was easy. And I can tell you what the perpetrators look like in these scenarios, because to me, they were like, is this somebody who I should care about? Do I care about this person? Like, what the fuck? No. But you don't know because you're 5 or 6 or 7 or 9 or whatever. And like going to the big um stall, that handicap stall, and like it feels like this for a child. Like it's really fucked up, but like it's like you don't know what's happening, so you're just kind of like shaking around, like because they're like moving your mouth, and they're you all I know when I'm processing it is like my genitals are like, I can feel activation, not just like being turned on, but like I can tell that in the memory that I'm reliving when I'm processing it, that there's activation. So then I know, I'm pretty sure that there was like intercourse, or there was fellatio, and there was all these things happening. And then I just come out because I was doing my job, and then I go back with my dad, and then I'm done. And that's it. Right? Like that's what these memories look like. That's what it looks like to recount this. Is it's not a narrative memory because it's a trauma memory. So all you see is like flashes, gray wall stalls. Okay. And then you see like the hand dryer thing in the bathroom. And then you see the door close, or like light blue stalls, right? Like when I'm picturing trauma for me, I'm picturing that, right? I'm picturing these white or gray or light blue stalls where the door is closed, you hear it, it clicks, and then like something's happening for a minute, and then you have a lot of emotions and stuff like that, and then you're done. You walk out, and it's all done. Boop 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 boop. And like the way that, and it happened, it happened multiple times, right? So all these random times that he trafficked me, a lot of the emotion did not actually come out until I was willing to be fully present in my body with my husband when we would try to have sex. And he knew, because he knows I'm healing, he knows everything, and I'm like, listen, I have no idea what's gonna happen. Like each time we're gonna go into having sex, I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen. Like, I could lose my absolute fucking mind afterwards, because it's good, because it's purging it. Like, essentially, that's how it feels. It feels like it's purging out old things. But I do remember, like, maybe 8 months ago or a year ago, when I really was like, I am healing the sexual wounds that I have. I am over it. I'm done having these be so triggering that I can't even like live my life the way I need to be able to just have a normal relationship with my husband whenever we want to have sex, like the parts of me that are adult and want to do that. And not have to carry the pain. Like, these little parts shouldn't have to carry the pain anymore of it and being triggering for them anymore. So I basically was like, all right, we're gonna do this. Like, and there was maybe like 1 or 2 times it genuinely felt like an exorcism. And not to say, because I don't even know if I believe in an exorcism, but that's how it feels, right? Is like, it felt like my brain was in like a revolving door, just like I'm like experiencing all these feelings and the emotions, and it's like the different people, and like it was crazy. Like, that's the only way I can describe it, is like all this suppressed shit that I have been holding down, um and switching and avoiding and all these things, is like when I finally was like able to be completely present with the emotions in my body and the feelings, the sensations in my body with my husband. And I literally would use like triggers, gentle triggers, to allow this stuff to be expressed. And it was literally insane. Like, it really felt like a revolving door. It felt like, it's almost like I barely even have visual memory. It's like an energy exchange. I know that sounds woo woo and crazy, but like, I feel like each perpetrator who did this to me, including my dad, it was like an energy transfer of just like shit into my system, which I then saved and like held onto on accident into a bank of just shit. You see my puppy? She's just like, do, what are you doing?
So cute.
Yeah. So yeah, it was crazy. Like, I don't know. Has any other survivors ever described it as an energy exchange?
I feel there's a spiritual element, an energetic element to our world that's really suppressed from us. I feel like they take that out whenever we're going to school. We're really pushed into this physical realm when
Yep.
in fact there's so much energy that we share amongst ourselves. And even just experiencing and hearing about how somatic a memory can be, and how your body literally held on, like you said, to those things. And every survivor says this whenever they've gone through dissociative memories and they're, integrating them, is that whenever that memory comes back, it's not just like, you're passing by somewhere, you smell something, and it's like, oh, that reminds me of my grandma's bread that she made whenever I was young. It's like all of a sudden, like you're back in the moment. Your body is feeling everything that you went through. You have the emotions come up, so your heartbeat might be going crazy for that moment. Like, that is all energy. That's all in the spirit realm. That's not like, and of course we're feeling it physically, but like, you operated your whole life for how many years, and that's just in there. And then all of a sudden you have a memory come back, and you're not
Yep.
just experiencing it through thought, but through energy, through the spirit. You're back in the moment. You're going back in time. Your body doesn't know even that you're in the present moment. And it is like, it's extremely spiritual. And especially, I think children too are so susceptible and open. Like you
Right.
said, like your human needs weren't met, and you're like meeting strangers to be trafficked and wondering like, can this person love me? So you're like trying to get whatever you can from them and just holding on to it. And like this like skewed version of love that's actually like taking poison in. And
Right.
you're just carrying that your whole life, like as this little child growing up, who's like, this is my little bit of like affection that I got. And it was like absolutely heinous, but it was
Right.
still something that like I experienced with somebody. I'm going to hold on to it because I'm so deprived of all of it,
Yeah.
And so then it's like, as an adult, you're like purging this poison that you took from everybody. And it's 100% energetic and spiritual. Absolutely.
So weird. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it was interesting. It was also like, I remember after that one night, it was that one night when I really purged like a shitload at once. Like, it felt spiritually like my body was like like just dumping anything that had a relationship to the emotion that I felt, which was probably like, I just remember being turned on for me is really difficult. like actually allowing myself to feel that in my body without so much shame and without so much disgust and hatred and like all these things, right? These really negative, low vibrational stuff. Like
Yes.
when I finally sat with that arousal and was like, yep, it's okay. Like arousal is something that you can have. It's something that you can own in your body. Like that is yours. That's when it just straight up took all the times I think that I swear that I was ever aroused with these random strangers and like all these fucked up people and all this disgust, and it was just like, and I just like it was like afterwards I just remember I like walked outside. I was like, because I had been sobbing, right? So I like walk outside and I'm like, what the fuck did I just like purge out? That was crazy. But I felt so much better, after I did need to rest and everything. I was like, I'm going to bed, like whatever. But I felt so much better from that point on. That's
Mhm.
another reason why I advocate so hard for everything, because I'm like, don't like keep suppressing all this stuff if you don't have to. Like your spirit just deserves to get rid of that shit. It was not yours, you know? Yeah.
Absolutely. And those things, like how we were even talking about how inverted love, something like love is, and touch. And so it's like these things, like you said, they're inherently ours. Like we should be able to have that gift of connecting with our partner on an intimate level and like being able to be present and enjoy that with them, not be bombarded with all the ways that somebody exploited human touch to us and exploited
Right.
us in a way that wasn't healthy touch. To have all that come up whenever you actually are in a healthy situation is so sad that this happens to so many people. And so then it's almost like how as a child you pushed love away,
Yeah.
healthy love that was like actually there for you. You couldn't accept it because of all the trauma that was behind it. Human touch, it's the same way. Then you're pushing away healthy touch that like we need, like we inherently like need that, as a
Yep.
child and an adult. It's a human need. And so it's really, I love, that's one of the things that I really love about your TikTok too, is that like you talk very candidly and openly about some of these topics that so many people go through and are so shamed to talk about it publicly when it's actually like a very common response and a very normal response to abuse and trauma. Of
Yep.
course, it's going to be hard to accept something that was used in such a horrific way as a healthy way all of a sudden. If all you've ever known is like
Right.
a really horrific type of touch or love, all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden, if you're experiencing it in a healthy way, like that's a learning curve to have to turn that around and figure that out. And a
Yep.
lot of survivors struggle with like relationships and marriage and intimacy,
Yeah.
and having parts doesn't help with that either, who are all
Nope.
carrying like different memories and like, parts of the situation and emotions towards it. And so
Yeah.
I really personally appreciate that you talk about these things because I think too, just like with OCD or some of these other symptoms that you've had and side effects, we're so quick to not understand or ask what's the underlying cause of this. We just accept it as, oh, this person just has that. Well, why do
Oh
they
my
have it?
God. Oh my
Is there
God.
a reason? And is it trauma? And a lot of times it is. And we just medicate people. We send them to therapy just to like get over the symptoms that they are
Like
experiencing
Band-Aid.
through abuse. Yeah. And they're not getting to like that root of it and like helping water at the root so a flower can bloom through that trauma.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so accurate. Yeah. Um, so I mean, I feel like I've touched on most things. The only thing I didn't say anything about is I do feel like I had some memory of being involved in CSAM or CSEM, whichever one. Um, and that was a weird experience. Well, it was a fucked up experience, a horrific experience, but yeah, like I had some memories and flashbacks from that type of stuff. I did have more recently a memory processing. My dad had bought a condo in the Bahamas, so right when they divorced, so that he could easily have access to that. And I do have memories walking from like our hotel room condo thing to down the hall to a different one to perform something, like do a service, and then come back. Um, I'm trying to remember what else. I've had so with that person that I met in my job, I had memories with that person come up sort of in some sort of movie theater, which I know there's a movie theater in the Bahamas that I knew of. And I'm extremely triggered by movie theaters, and I never realized that. And so I think that that probably has something that I eventually might process something to do with. I saw online that St. Martin is a really big hub apparently for trafficking, which, I mean, pretty much any Caribbean country that's not super regulated, they are a hub for these things. But like, my dad took me to St. Martin when I was like 8 or 9, maybe. And like, I definitely felt weird about it. I mean, I feel like almost every trip that I was taken on was for some ulterior motive. Like, I mean, he definitely like, oh yeah, this is our family trip, me and you, like blah blah blah. And he also tried to take my kids. Oh my god. So before I found out about myself, my kids were little. Like, when I started to see him interact with them, even for like a minute or two at a time, the disgust was insane in my body. Like, I was so reactive because those parts of me knew that he wasn't a safe person, even if the day to day self did not know that. And so, like, when he would like get ice cream and like feed them ice cream, I was like not okay. Like, I was like freaking the fuck out. Um, there was like a few instances where literally he had only been around them maybe like 4 or 5 times in their whole life because he was busy doing his own thing. And he led a study abroad program in Italy. He still does, I believe, with KSU. Yep. And all the students love him and he's the best, blah 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 blah. Like, I go on his Rate My Professor and I want to rip my hair out of my head and explode, but it's fine. My mom too. Both of us are just like, whatever. So yeah, he has study abroad program in Italy where he is the primary contact for all of the freshman students or the whatever undergrad students who are doing study abroad. And yes, I have seeked all possible solutions to having him investigated, but as we see in the government, I don't think they're too concerned about it at this point right now. So I don't know what else to do. I've filed a police report. I have contacted the FBI. Um, I've tried to go through ICAC with the police in my area. Like, I have done, at this point, I have arrested my attempts. I'm like, Emily, you can't do this anymore because I've literally done everything I could possibly think of and like talk to people about it. And I'm like, this is it, whatever. Oh, I contacted KSU. I let them know. Um, I made a GoFundMe, or not GoFundMe. What the hell is it? Some whatever where it's like you can, I have it on my TikTok account, but I made a page where people can sign to have him investigated for crimes because I know that people like this typically continue to do these things. Like,
Yes.
I don't know for certain that he's continuing to do it, but he did it when I was a child, and I mean, why wouldn't he? He's probably done it. He did it with when my mom was early married with him, right? Like, we have this pattern. We know. Whatever. Um so I've tried to get him like looked at. Nobody's gonna do anything. I'm done with that. It is what it is. I've tried my best.
Is he still working that same job today?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. And what I was gonna say is I remember whenever like my kids were little. So my oldest son, who's now 9, was 1.5 or 2 or something. And my daughter, who's now 7, was like, what, I mean, they were both babies. Like, they were little, right? My older son was like a toddler. She was like a baby. She was like 18 months old or less. He was like, so I should take Jace for the summer, my older son, and he can come stay in Italy, and like I'll let him go. And like, that was during the whole thing where I was like, that is, I can't emphasize this enough. That will never happen. Like, and I didn't even know about like my own trauma, but I was so creeped out by him that because it was starting to try and surface in me basically. But yeah, so I definitely think that he would do the same type of crazy shit with my kids. 100%. And so obviously I have no contact, so it's not a problem now. Um, and had to threaten a fucking what is it called? Threaten a restraining order because he was
Mm.
still sending shit to my house and still trying to love bomb me with shit and like, mm-hmm. Yeah, it's fine. I genuinely, he's in complete denial himself. He has no idea, as far as I'm concerned. I don't know, and that's not my problem. But yeah, I'm just like, you have no access to anything in my life, like at all. It's not going to happen.
Right. You might not be able to control the investigation. You aren't able to control what other people do, but you can break the cycle yourself and save your own family and make sure it does not happen anymore to anybody that you can control who can be
Yep.
affected by somebody like him, which
Yep.
makes you a hero.
Thanks. Yeah, dude. I'm going to do everything I can. Um, with pleasure. Like, I'm ready, you know?
Which I love. And I'm so grateful that you're online sharing. I thought if it's okay with you before we close up, and I'm excited to have you back on again to talk more about DID, to talk about healing, to talk about memory integration. I think you're such an incredible person to learn about these topics from. And I'm also just excited to hear more about how you got through all of what you went through as far as remembering and healing. Because, some survivors are like, gosh, the healing was harder than the abuse that I went through. But one of the things that I really love that a lot of survivors are doing, not just taking on social media and creating accounts and bringing awareness, but also creating different art forms, whether that's on a canvas where they're actually painting and sharing online, music, blogging. I love that you have taken to YouTube and other platforms, but we're going to show that today, if it's okay, to use your voice in song as well, and to write, produce, and create music and music videos. And I wanted to share one of them today that you had shared with me, if that's okay.
Yeah.
And
I'm
maybe
so
if you want
excited.
to preface it, it's the Frankenstein Girl song, if you want to talk about that a little bit, and then I can bring it up on screen and we can watch it.
Okay. Yeah. So as like where I am now in advocacy and stuff, but also um I want to bring social change. Really, really bad. And so like I feel like um my goal is to like influence the masses in some capacity, and I think that music does that really well. And I've always literally just like I sung as a child to get through the shit that I went through. Like I just remember sitting in my room with the Avril Lavigne album on repeat, you know what I'm saying? Like same thing like with, I don't know, all the girl power people at the time when we were kids. And like I just was like, I would just sing, probably as a stem, and also just because I just straight up love singing, and I've always been musical. Like my mom would like, she also, both my parents actually played in a band and played together and played separate. And so my mom, she's continued music. So I come from kind of like a musically inclined kind of family where we like do that stuff, right? Whatever. And I don't know, my mom would be like, "Oh my God, you think of such cool harmonies and stuff like that." And I think for the first time in my entire life, I've been able to, after healing, have access to getting better at learning how to use those gifts. Like I've never been able to use them in this capacity. Um, as I have recently when I've been trying to like create songs and create um social change, hopefully, right? So I'm going to keep going. And I mean, I definitely think I have lots of work to continue to work on, and like keep trying to grow as an artist. And I want to like, I just never want to give up. Like I just want to keep trying. And I'm really excited about it. Like genuinely so proud of myself. Like I have been in so many positions where I could have given up on trying to do this because it's hard. Like learning how, I've taught myself how to use GarageBand with like YouTube videos and like just lots of stuff like that, to create the actual tracks. And then I've always been a video person. Like I loved creating videos even when I was like a little kid. So the video part I already kind of had, which is cool. And being able to do that and then make music videos for myself, like literally when it first, this song specifically, like when it first like all came together and I put that video out, I was like, well, I could die now. I've officially done it. This is all I wanted to do with my life. I'm good. I don't care now. Like, and maybe it's just because as a kid, that's what I idolized, was like music people. And I thought they were so cool. And I was like, I want to be cool like that, man. And like, so I straight up did it. And now I'm just like, I could die happy. It's like bucket list type of shit. Like,
What's the song about
okay.
before we play it?
Yeah. So it's about how it feels to have survived sexual abuse. I mean, genuinely. And I know that's a heavy ass topic. And so it's really, really hard for, I think, a lot of people to even sit with it. But what a better time than the Epstein stuff coming up. I think it's a great time to talk about this shit and make it, shine the spotlight on it. Like, we are supposed to be, as females, or that's how I was raised, to be like so pretty and don't say anything and whatever. And that's what this song is about, is like showing you what is the ugly side to that type of fucking abuse, right? Like, what are you actually asking for when you're asking for me to be quiet and obedient and all these things? Like, what you're asking for is for me to turn into Frankenstein, like to be stitched up with all the fragments that I currently have based on, and obviously, like, that I've worked through to get to the point where I am. So it's just spreading awareness.
And so can you see this on your screen?
I can, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to play this through for everybody listening. I'm going to have Emily's YouTube below also, and I would love if you guys shared it here, and she can share with you. We'll show it here on YouTube, and then she can share what other platform she's on for you guys. But I'm going to go ahead and play this.
Thank you.
Oh, she's beautiful, long lashes, they said. Make sure she doesn't let it go to her head. Rearranging pieces, we need you to change. They won't see us, don't make us look strange. Lost in my own head, every day's a new set. Don't tell us all your truth, just forget. No one will believe you, smile and laugh like we do. Don't speak up, people make you regret. I'm a Frankenstein girl, a doll made for smut. Nobody wants to see what's hidden uncut. Not a wrinkle in sight, eyes wide, mouth shut. The answer is yes, no matter what. Lost in my own head, every day's a new set. Don't tell us all your truth, just forget. No one will believe you, smile and laugh like we do. Don't speak up, people make you regret. I'm a Frankenstein girl, a doll made for smut. Nobody wants to see what's hidden uncut. Who am I? Just what they adore. Where's the key to my own little door? If I break the script, will I still be safe? My body isn't mine, or is this my fate? I'm a Frankenstein girl, a doll made for smut. Nobody wants to see what's hidden uncut. Not a wrinkle in sight, eyes wide, mouth shut. The answer is yes, no matter what.
Oh my gosh, I get chills just watching it. That's so neat that you did all that by yourself. It looks so good, and the message is just so powerful behind it.
Thanks. Me too. All my little selves are just like,
And you published it. You didn't just make it, but like you put it out there for people to listen to. And it's special too that survivors are creating music that other survivors can relate to. Because so much of, the music is so toxic that's been popularized in so many ways. And so it's neat to see creators like you taking that power back and being like, no, we're putting out messages that are important, not this bull crap that we're listening to on the radio.
Oh my God, really though? Really? What are we doing? Like, sometimes I'll just be listening to something and I'm like, why is this what we're doing? Like, can we not? Oh my God.
Where else can people find this? Because I'm showing YouTube because there's the video, but what other platforms are you streaming to?
Okay, so I have the actual music being uploaded onto normal platforms. So like right now on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, Frankenstein Girl is out technically. And then so yeah, I want to continue to put out stuff on the major platforms like that, music wise. I have all the stuff pretty much is on SoundCloud. So SoundCloud is like the basis for like my creative stuff. Do I think it's the best that I make? No, I'm working on it. I want to be able to put out stuff that like, and maybe that's the perfectionist in me. I want to put out stuff that I feel like I'm like, okay, I'm like done. And I want this out everywhere. those ones are going to be the one that's like on Amazon Music and everything like that. So Frankenstein Girl is in that category at this point because I wanted to make the video and everything. So whatever.
Amazing. And so do you have those links on your TikTok as well?
Like to the platforms and stuff. I should do that, I guess, into Linktree. I could put them in the Linktree.
Cool. And regardless, if you want to just send them to me, I'll put them all individually in the show notes too. So if somebody's on Spotify or prefer SoundCloud or YouTube, you can just send them there also. And your YouTube also, you do normal videos. Like you've done actual topics there yourself as well, just talking how you would on TikTok, just in a little bit of a longer form, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I have like my whole story and it's condensed, and I was really excited to do this with you because I could actually go into depth that I haven't previously. I'm really, really honored and excited that you let me go deep with it for sure. But yeah, so the episode 1, 2, 3, 4, that's like my full story. And I actually did that a few years ago. Josh used to do YouTube stuff, my husband. Like he used to have a beard channel and all this, like where talk about like beard products and everything. Yeah, so he like geeked out on videoing so he was like, I'll help you. And I was like, oh my God, hell yeah, let's do it. So like we made our own little like interview thingy with me for fun, like a few years ago.
That's awesome. So your channel has your music on it as well. For people who are on YouTube watching, you guys can go check her out there and subscribe. And if you're on other platforms, which I encourage you guys to be, TikTok, like I said, go join if you haven't. Go follow on Spotify and SoundCloud and iTunes Music or Apple Music, whatever it's called. Emily, just amazing. You know, congratulations. The little girl in you is just so proud of you. Like she's smiling at you for what you've overcome and how you've taken her experiences to make an impact in the world.
It's the best.
Makes me
I'm so happy. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Do you have any closing thoughts for any survivors listening or listeners?
I mean, my main closing thought is like, whatever your deepest dreams are and like what you really want, it's possible. Like, I think people really get used to just settling and they're like, well, this is the best I can have. Like, no, literally, I'm still discovering that it's not. And like, I can keep going and getting bigger, and I'm going to keep trying to. Because it's like, you just don't know the impact you can have. I still don't know the impact I have. And I'm happy to just continue doing it.
Well, you're certainly having one. You've had one on my heart, and I know everybody listening is going to feel the same way. So thank you for coming on. I can't wait to have you on again. And for everybody listening, thank you guys for listening. You guys are the foundation and the cornerstone of all of this. We couldn't do this without you guys. So thank you for listening. Bless you all, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.